Our Bible reading today is from Genesis 11 and 12. We look at the Tower of Babel, and then we see God's promise to Abraham. Have you ever tried to make your own plans, only for them to fall completely apart? You see, I think we all love to have a plan. I know I do. Whether it's a plan for a day, a 5-year plan for a goal, or even a dream for our future. Planning is something that we all do naturally. Many of us do it excessively. But you see, there are moments when our plans don't work out as we expected. And that's what happens here in Genesis 11 and 12. We see two contrasting stories, and these stories remind us of the importance of following God's plans instead of relying on our own understanding. In Genesis 11, the people of the earth, they come together and they decide that what they want to do is they want to build a tower. This tower, what was called the Tower of Babel, became a way of making a name for themselves, and they were trying to avoid being scattered across the earth. They were determined to build something so impressive, something that would make them famous, and it would keep them united. Scripture says, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky. Let us make a name for ourselves, otherwise we will be scattered throughout the earth." That comes in Genesis chapter 11, verse 4. Unfortunately, however, in their desire to make a name for themselves, what happens is they ignored God's original command to spread across the earth and fill it. That was their command, Genesis 1:28. Instead of trusting God's purpose and his plan, what they did is they sought to create their own greatness. And then what we see, God's response. God confused their language, causing them to stop understanding one another. And when this happened, it led to their scattering across the earth. The Tower of Babel stands as a reminder for us that when we try to build our own kingdoms, we're often met with frustration. But when we follow God's will, when we follow God's ways, he blesses our efforts in ways that are beyond what we can even imagine. And then we read in Genesis chapter 12, we see a complete shift. We see the story of Abram, who would later be named Abraham. You see, God calls Abram to leave everything that he knows and to go to a land that God would show him. Unlike the people at Babel in Genesis 11, who sought to build their own name, God promises to make Abram's name great. And through him, he promises that he will bless all of the families of the earth. The scripture says, "Go from your land, your relatives, and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make you into a great nation. I will bless you. I will make your name great." And then he says, "And you will be a blessing." That's Genesis 12, verses 1 and 2. You see, God's call to Abram requires faith, trust, and obedience. God didn't tell Abram all the details up front, but he promised that his plan would be for Abram's good and for the good of the world. You see, Abraham's story shows us that when we obey God's call, even when we don't know all the answers, all the details, we participate in a bigger plan than we can see at the moment. God's plan is always bigger than our own. So what do we do when we reflect on these two stories? I want you to reflect on your own plans and dreams. Are they focused on making a name for yourself? Or are they centered around seeking God's will, God's ways for your life? So today, take a moment to reflect and then surrender your plans to God and trust that His plan for you is far greater than anything